Hello, everyone. I'm Mimi Lichtenstein, and today on Adventures in Luxury Travel, I have James Curry on with me, and we are going to introduce you to one of my favorite safari lodges in Kenya, Ol Donyo. James, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Mimi. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm so happy you're here because, as I said, it's one of my favorite places. And you have a very interesting background that I would love for you to share with our listeners because gives a little bit more context to where the information you're going to share is coming from with your, very impressive background.
Yeah, thanks, Mimi. So I've been in the safari industry for far too long. Uh, I think at least at least 25 to 30 years now. I started off as a guide and worked as a guide in Southern Africa. And now I work for Great Plains Conservation, which owns Ol Donyo Lodge. And in between all of that, I've worked as a wildlife TV host for National Geographic and also had my own bird watching TV show on that aired in the United States, basically on Destination America and NBC Sports. And that show ran for about 11 years. And then I've also written a couple of books, most recent of which is called When Eagles Roar. And it's about my time as a guide in Africa. But most importantly, I am an ardent conservationist and a huge believer in including communities in the conservation process.
Amazing. Well, I feel very fortunate that you're here today to talk with us. Let's start giving people an idea about where Ol Donyo is. It's in Kenya. And so, for those of you who are just listening, we're looking at a map of Kenya and going from north to south. Ol Donyo is at the very, very, more southern tip of Kenya. Can you give us an idea of what the setting is related to national parks and private conservancies and how that works?
Sure, no problem, Mimi. So Ol Donyo Lodge is set on a piece of private Maasai land. So it's owned by the Maasai community, and we are the tenants and they are the landlords. And basically, it's on a big piece of land called Mbirikani Ranch. And this ranch is about 110,000 hectares. So it is huge. It's a massive piece of land, but it's right on the border of the Chyulu Hills National Park, which is between the well-known Amboseli National Park on the border with Tanzania and the huge Tsavo National Park. There's Tsavo East and Tsavo West in that portion, that southern portion of Kenya. So it's a really stunning setting with lots of unique rock formations and mountains, really, really stunning views. And of course, probably the most iconic view is the view of Mount Kilimanjaro from the lodge itself.
Yes, it always felt like a lucky day when the clouds would part and you would get to see or take a photo with that in the background.
Exactly.
Um, and so typically when people are coming to Africa and coming to Kenya, they're there for the animals. So let's talk a little bit about the animals. There is one of those iconic photos of an elephant in front of Mount Kilimanjaro. What kind of animals are people seeing when they're at Ol Donyo?
Sure. So Ol Donyo is a little bit unique in that it has different wildlife to what guests might experience, let's say, in the Masai Mara. So you're not going to see big herds of buffalo there. You're not going to see big breeding herds of elephants, but you will see a lot of bull elephants. This is the home or the land of the bachelors when it comes to elephants. So you've got these really massive bull elephants that are seen very frequently on the property, and then fairly good numbers of lion. It's quite a good area to see cheetah. Leopard are very seldom seen, although you can see leopard as well. And then a lot of other unique wildlife like oryx and giraffe, and then also gerenuk, which is almost like a cross between an antelope and a giraffe. It's an antelope with a really long neck
Mm-hmm.
that's specially adapted to feeding on vegetation at the top of the bushes, where it can basically outcompete all the other antelope. So really nice, unique wildlife, but probably the stars of the show would be those bull elephants for sure.
And we saw a lot of those. We'll show you one of my favorite spots at the lodge with lots of elephants in front of it. You neglected to mention my daughter and my favorite animal,
That's
which
why I left that one to you, Mimi.
oh, you did? Okay. The warthog. Actually, I mean, obviously, if you're watching, you could see how cute he is. Maybe you might not think the adult ones are cute, but when they have a trail of 5 or 6 little babies running after them with their tails all sticking in the air, it is precious, in our opinion. So we were always seeking out baby warthogs on the trip. Um, and your point about the giraffes, there were so many giraffes on our trip. We went out one day with Jackson for sundowners and just were so fortunate to see, I think there were 12, 14 giraffes as we turned the corner with the sun setting behind them. So the amount of wildlife we saw there was incredible. Just some diversity to it, but also just the numbers of it, which for our first safari in Kenya was a really special experience for us. And I love too about Ol Donyo that you guys have a lot of ways to be active on safari, not just be in a vehicle driving around, because we're a pretty active bunch. And so this one day we went out horseback riding in the morning, and to go horseback riding, literally right next to the zebras and the elephants, maybe not too close. We didn't see them too close, but the giraffes, luckily we didn't see any lions, was a really unique and very special experience. Have you gone out on horses while you're there?
I have actually, yes.
Yeah.
So it's definitely one of the activities that I'd highly recommend. Obviously, you have to be you don't need to be an accomplished rider, but you need to be able to ride confidently. You
Mhm.
don't need to be an expert, but certainly what they will do is they'll give you a little test ride in the little arena ahead of time just to make sure that you are comfortable on a horse. And then you can ride out in the early mornings or the late afternoons. And it is just the most amazing way to see wildlife because they react very differently to people on horseback. So,
Mhm.
whereas if you're on foot, everything's going to absolutely flee and disappear. When you're on horseback, you can get a lot closer. And in fact, we've got some amazing photographs in our catalog of horses actually riding between cheetah, which is pretty amazing, an amazing way to see
Wow.
cheetah at Ol Donyo, and obviously the giraffes as well.
Well, I hope I get to come back one day and see that. One of our other favorite things to see was running giraffes. And this picture, which is from you guys, was an incredible one as people are essentially galloping along with their horses right next to a running giraffe.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It is a very special experience, and just so that you know as well, we've got about 16 South African horses there. They're really well suited to riding out into the African bush. Very strong, sturdy horses, but also quite calm.
Mhm.
So they tend not to get as spooked as other horses would in similar situations. So very safe to ride them. And then we also have all the equipment that you need. So jodhpurs and helmets and riding crops and everything is there. So you don't need to bring anything with you.
Yeah, it was perfect. And this is, again, I said I love the running giraffe. We were out one day, and just all of a sudden, all of these giraffes just started galloping by us. It was such an amazing experience. Really, just something, obviously, you can see it on film, but it just to be there and to see it in person is just so spectacular and so special. So we loved seeing all the giraffe everywhere. And then mountain biking, if you want to get a little bit more exercise, we went out mountain biking while we were there. Have you done that?
I haven't done the mountain biking, but yes, you can absolutely go out, do the mountain biking, obviously with a guide, and heading out. You can also do walks. If you enjoy running, we can actually take you on a run because I don't know if you noticed the landscape there. It's really nice and open.
Mhm.
This is what makes it so unique in being able to offer all these different activities.
Yeah.
Other parts of Africa where you've got lots of thick bush, you would never be able to offer these kind of activities. It's just not safe.
Yeah.
Whereas here we can see for miles away. So it's a lot safer for us to be able to offer these activities.
And I did ask, I think, about riding the mountain bike from the lodge out into the plains, but you do have to go through the bush. So that's not allowed, just in case
Yeah.
around the corner you get surprised by a lion or an elephant. But as we were driving in the safari vehicle with the bikes on the back, you could see the elephant just walked right by us. So it's like wherever you go, you see the animals as soon as you leave. So you don't even mind being in the car because every time you're in the car, you're always just looking for animals. And then the night safari, that was our first experience on a night safari, which because of the red light makes this lion look particularly menacing. um, but to be out there, these guys actually had killed one of the Maasai's cows. Um, and I think it was the night before, so we knew it was there, and so when we came by it, there were 2 lions feasting on it, and then when we went the next day, it was interesting. The cow head was in the tree, and at first we were like, "How in the world would that have happened?" And then Jackson explained to us that the Maasai, to help it, so that they don't wanna kill lions for killing their cows, that they're correct me if I'm wrong, but is it the government that actually will pay them if one of their, cattle gets attacked by a lion?
Yeah, so there is a exactly, there's a scheme where, if there's any sort of, conflict between people and wildlife, that people are reimbursed through the Kenya Wildlife Service for
Mhm,
any losses that
mm,
are incurred as a result of, lions or even elephants with crops, for
mm,
example, in areas like Amboseli and Tsavo, when they move out of the park and eat somebody's maize crops, for example, they are reimbursed for that as well. So
okay.
we've got an amazing project, actually, which you've just reminded me, at Ol Donyo, which is fantastic. It's actually called the Maasai Olympics, and
Mm,
it's something that we run every 2 years. And it's basically to encourage young Maasai warriors not to hunt lions as a rite of passage, but
mm,
rather compete in the Maasai Olympics. And it's all moving away from the traditional conflict between lions and Maasai, and
mhm,
rather looking at lions as a benefit to the Maasai versus a threat.
mhm,
So the Maasai Olympics are run every 2 years from Ol Donyo Lodge.
mm,
The winners get an entry into the New York Marathon, and it's quite a prestigious event.
wow,
And all the Maasai compete and do spear throwing and jumping, who can jump the highest, and running, various different activities. And it's all around proving your manhood as a young warrior through
mhm,
Olympics versus killing lions.
mhm. That's an amazing story, and so, just out of curiosity, if you happen to be there when this is happening, are you observing this Olympics?
Correct, yeah, but to get into the lodge is very difficult. It's like every December. I
Okay.
think next December we'll be running it again, but the lodge fills up very, very quickly for this. So maybe the best thing to do is to book like 2 years in advance to try get in to see that or to witness it.
Right, and we're gonna talk about that at the end because it's very hard to get into Ol Donyo, so you gotta plan
Yes.
ahead. Well, so in this particular case, the Maasai warrior had put the cow head up in the tree so that the inspector, who is responsible to make sure that what he declared is accurate, had an easier time to find where the cow remains were. So that was a very interesting fact to learn from Jackson.
Yeah, absolutely. And we work very closely hand in hand with a foundation there called Big Life Foundation
Hmm.
at Ol Donyo. And Big Life Foundation does exactly that. It actually goes around, assesses the losses from communities and stuff, and then works with the Kenya Wildlife Service to make sure that those community members are being reimbursed for the losses.
Nice. And it was fun when we were out and about on safari drives each day. We would see like a young Maasai walking with his cattle. I can't remember how many, but easily 50 or so with one, I think maybe like 12-year-old boy potentially, like a lot of responsibility for this little kid, in my opinion. Um, and he was, I think, dressed in just regular clothes, but this picture is of the Maasai in their traditional outfits, which are always so colorful. And um, I assume, I mean, now around the lodge, the Maasai, are they some of them still dressed like this on a normal basis, or is it more for special occasions?
No, absolutely. Yeah, so obviously there's different type of clothing and apparel for different occasions as a Maasai, but most Maasai warriors will have the traditional shuka or the blanket, which you can see just on the right on the shoulders of these warriors in the front. And then they'll have the blanket. They might not necessarily be dressed exactly like that with the headdresses and everything, but definitely with the shuka, with their sandals, and then obviously with their Maasai spear as well, which you have to have when you're walking in the bush. But it's amazing to look at these youngsters, as you say, 10, 12-year-old boys herding cattle, and having to potentially come into conflict with lions. And so it's a very different sort of a life of hard knocks. You're thrown out there as a young boy and asked to defend dad's cattle. As a young boy, it's got to be pretty frightening. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely a rite of passage for all young Maasai boys.
Yeah. Nice. Beautiful.
Yeah.
I love showing this because this is a picture of us with Jackson. So Jackson was our guide, and we also had a server Jackson. So we had two Jacksons. We adored both of them. One of the things, I mean, we love so many things about Jackson. He's obviously super knowledgeable. He's from there. He's grown up there. He did all that as a child, right? Like walked around with his herd of cows. And he also taught our daughter, Jessie, how to take amazing pictures with the beautiful camera that came along with the safari vehicle. And that was such a fun part of the trip because we didn't really come there prepared as amazing photographers already. But the fact that we were with Jackson first and he taught her how to use it and, how to set up a shot, set the stage for the rest of our trip. So the other places that we went, we rented a couple of cameras at different places and she took beautiful photos. So that's one of those things that you don't really think about when you're planning a safari. But when you're there, it's really fun to be able to have access to such a, strong camera and learn how to use it.
Yeah, at all our lodges at the reserve level, which are the Relay and Chateau properties, we do offer the free camera kit, which
Mhm.
you have a short lens and a long lens. So it's nice to use that long lens, obviously, for the wildlife close-ups. But then you also have a pair of binoculars to use. I don't know whether you got that when you were there as
Mhm. Yeah, it was
well.
great. We loved it.
Yeah.
And speaking of Relais Chateau and food, obviously, when you go stay at a Relais Chateau, you have an expectation that it is going to be amazing. And it was. I would say that it was definitely the best sundowners of our trip for sure. Um, the afternoons are full of, tea set out with snacks before you go on your afternoon game drive. And then we loved the dine around concept where you eat in lots of different places. This particular one is a bush breakfast that we had after we went horseback riding one morning, which was a lovely way to end our horseback ride. And then the sundowners, like it just, Jackson was well prepared with, our favorite types of alcohol, cocktails, kids' sodas, and lots of delicious snacks to end our day. And we really enjoyed every aspect of being out there. After or before you go out on an evening drive or after you've been out in the afternoon to just sort of settle in and, relax and be in the quiet and see what's moving around you was a really special experience for us.
Yeah, absolutely. The ability to dine in a different place at every meal is really fantastic, and we
Yeah.
do try to do that even if it's around the lodge itself. We might do a dinner in your room one night. The next night it'll be down in the guest area or by the pool, privately by the pool, like that. Exactly.
Mhm.
We'll even occasionally do like a dinner or even a massage, and we'll talk about the massages in a bit, I'm sure, but we'll even do that down at the Hides, which we'll come to as well. So
Yeah, beautiful, and all of them are great places, and it was fun, actually. I don't think we knew where we were gonna be eating each day. It was just sort of like, "Here you go, come this way," and then, we would sit down to eat in a new location, which was really nice.
but Mimi,
Uh,
that's a nice shot that you're using there, because that shows you the water hole in the background.
mhm,
Right in that open area, you can see the elephant, and that's where the hide is. So
mhm,
you actually from the guest area above on the hill, you're looking down on that watering hole. And in fact, almost all the rooms, I think all the rooms actually, have a view of that watering hole as well. So you can
okay.
watch the wildlife from your room, And then you've got in the background of that hide, you've got beautiful Mount Kilimanjaro if you're lucky and the weather's clear.
Mm-hmm.
It really is just such a stunning landscape.
Yeah, the views are stunning. I think this was the view from either our kids' room or our room. I can't remember which, but I loved the hide, number one, but also the watering hole. I mean, to have a watering hole there, when we were there, it was a little, it was dry. So they particularly enjoyed having the watering hole. But clearly that means there's going to be a lot of animals coming. And when you're at the lodge just hanging out, you know, to encourage your children, your teenagers, not to be on a phone, right? Instead, you're out there looking at animals and it's way more fun.
Right.
And then the room. So you and I were just talking because you mentioned that you guys are about to undergo overhaul of the rooms. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're going to do a refurb of the rooms. Currently, we have three different types of rooms, actually. We've got a regular pool suite, and then we've got a deluxe pool suite, and then we've got the Sambu suite, which is well suited to families or couples traveling together because it's basically two ensuite rooms with a common guest area and all under one roof, basically. But every single one of the rooms, regardless of category, has their own private pool. And then every single room also has a sleep out deck up above. But next year, we're actually going to only have two categories of rooms. We're going to have the family suites. We're building another one. So we'll have two family suites. And then we'll have the deluxe pool suites. So we're not going to have a regular pool suite category anymore. So that'll be exciting. And it's all going to look really fresh and brand new. So it'll be next year, April.
And it was beautiful when we were there. So I can't wait to see pictures of what it's like afterwards.
Yeah.
I think it's another good point. When you're staying at lodges where there's 4 rooms or tents, 6, 8, maybe one room that's a family room that has the 2 bedrooms connected with the living room, or maybe 2, and there's a limited amount of those, it's very important to book really far ahead if that's what you want. So better to think now that I want to go on safari in 2 years and plan ahead than at the last minute, which would be 9 months, 6 to 9 months before, say, oh, I want to go next summer, because odds are the room that you want might be sold out, the lodge that you want might be sold out. So I always encourage people to plan ahead. Now, what I liked about our room, which I think you'd mentioned, this is how they're all going to be. We had an enclosed bedroom, and then we had an open living room. So the living room was wide open to the outside, just with really big, heavy curtains that could be pulled at nighttime. So during turn down, that's what they did. And this we will come back to in a moment when I play more of an audio for you about an experience we had one night. And then the bathrooms are beautiful. I'm a big fan of a tub with a view. So this tub looks out over that same view out to the hide and the animals and the watering hole, and an outdoor shower. I'm also a big fan of outdoor showers. And you mentioned the sleep out, which other people sometimes call a star bed. What I love about you guys is you have star beds on top of everyone's villa. And so you can have it made up one night, which we did, but you don't have to sleep in it. If you want to, you can just be up there for a couple of hours and then go back into your bedroom to sleep, which is a little different than some other ones where you might be a mile or 2 from the main lodge. So you're committed to sleeping out there if you're out there. So
Yeah, that's really a sleep out. But yeah, I think a star bed's definitely a better terminology for sure.
yeah.
But they're lovely, and like you said, if you get cold or you get scared, you just simply walk down the steps, and it's right above your room. So you walk down, you open the door, and you're back in the comfort of your bedroom.
Yeah. Exactly. And so this happens to be a picture of our star bed. I think that it was made up before the sunset, but to be able to go up there and watch the sunset, even if you don't stay out all night, was just such a wonderful experience, and I highly recommend it. Now the hide, so we looked at the hide a little bit from high above, and here is an example of what the hide is like when you are way down low. You are literally, I don't know how many feet, maybe, 15, 25 feet from the animals. And you could just hang out there, right? You don't even have to go on safari. You could just hang out in the hide if you want, have a cocktail, have a coffee in the morning, just check out what animals are there. So I imagine you've spent a good amount of time in the hide.
Yeah, actually, my favorite thing when I go to Ol Donyo is I hardly go on game drives. Actually, I spend most of the day down there, and we've got two different types of hides. So we've got that hide, which is sunken into the ground, so that you are at eye level, almost looking up at the elephants with Kilimanjaro behind. And then next to this hide is an above ground hide where you kind of looking more sort of down on them or sort of at eye level with the elephants rather than looking up at them. Uh,
Hmm.
and both of these areas are fantastic opportunities to, have and the waiters, they'll bring a bottle of wine down for you, and you can have a glass of wine down there and stay there as long as you like. It's absolutely fantastic. And one of my favorite ways is to watch the wildlife come to you versus actually going out and looking for the wildlife. Both are cool. This is a really nice way to do it.
And what I love is that you're not just seeing the animals when you're on a game drive, right? You're just hanging out because the middle of the day, you're usually hanging out at the lodge. But I can't get enough animals. So to be able to have the animals on the game drive and the animals when you're at the lodge, to me, is a perfect combination.
Yeah.
Um, this is a little video of us. So it maybe gives you even a better perspective of how close you are to
Wow.
these massive bull elephants. And I think the zebra, it was interesting because the elephants kind of rule the roost, right? So when they show up, other people vacate or other animals vacate. And they happen to just stand right in the middle of the watering hole as well, drinking. I mean, because elephants drink some outrageous amount of water every day, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Like they'll drink easily hundreds of liters of water in a day. I
Yeah.
mean, literally. So yeah,
And
absolutely.
then you have like a little bit muddy, sludgy water for the poor zebras who get the leftovers.
Yeah, because those elephants are clever. They know where the cleanest water is. So they all accumulate right where the pipe goes into the watering hole, and they get that nice clean water. And yeah, you're right. The zebras and giraffes, they have to be content with the muddy water.
Right? Those poor zebras and giraffes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
feel for them. Um, and so, what was the next one I wanted to ask you about? Oh, I know. Other than the hides, when you're in the main lodge, I'm trying to remember if this was here, but you have also the telescopes from the main lodge, right?
Yes. Yeah. So when you're up at the main area, you can, have a gin and tonic, or you can be at lunch and you can be looking down with a telescope or with a pair of binoculars as well, looking down on the hide and watching all the action that happens. And there's action all the time, actually. Obviously, the best time's the middle of the day, but quite easy for you to be sitting up there and see two male lions come down and drink from the watering hole as well, because they'll also drink there mainly at night, but sometimes in the day as well. And I've been down there when I've had cheetah and lion come into that watering hole, which has been
You
fantastic.
have.
Yeah.
Okay. We did not see cheetah and lion when we were there. Not at the watering hole at least, but we heard them. And I was hoping to play the audio of this, but I think I'll just have to describe it. So I think it was our first night there. I had fallen asleep. It was about midnight, and I woke up to a noise that I was sure was a lion. It wasn't the roaring lion that, sometimes people think of from the movies, right? It was more like a throat noise. And so I got up with my phone, put the light on, went out to the glass door to look outside, thinking for sure that this guy was literally right outside my door.
Right.
He was not there. So then I slightly, a little nervous, decided I was going to open the door to the living room. And as I mentioned before, the living room has no wall to the outside. And in my mind at midnight that night, there was going to be a lion laying down on my sofa bed. But he wasn't there. And I learned that the sound travels very far. So he was probably not right outside my door, like it sounded like he was, that he was either down at the watering hole or a little bit further away.
Yeah, it's actually amazing. I would say almost every time that I've been at El Donyo, I think maybe only one time I haven't heard lions from the camp. So from the rooms, it's quite common to hear lions roaring. And it is that crazy sound. It's like a
Yes,
mm,
you
mm,
got it. That's
like that.
exactly
Yeah,
what it sounds like.
yeah. And quite a frightening thing to hear when you're not used to it and you don't know
Right.
what it is. But yes, it does travel quite far, about about 5 kilometers actually. So,
which is shocking.
um, but yeah, but the lions will often be in the camp as well. They can be right in camp. So
Mhm. So do you have a favorite place at El Donyo? You mentioned you like to be at the lodge. Would you say it's the hide?
yeah, at the hide, I mean, that's the best place to be. I've fallen in love with those big tusker elephants, and we actually have two what we call super tusker elephants, and these are elephants that have at least one tusk weighing more than 100 pounds. And there used to be hundreds, if not thousands, of these big tusked elephants roaming Africa, 50, 80 years ago. And
Mm,
now, unfortunately, we've only got about 20 left on planet
mm,
Earth. And it's all a result of trophy hunting and poaching.
mhm,
The gene for large ivory in elephants is disappearing really quickly. And so to have two of these super tuskers, two of the 20 present at Ol Donyo, is a real privilege. And one of them is very famous. His name is One Ton, and he will come down to that watering hole really frequently. And there's another one called Lobola, and these two are these really big bulls with magnificent ivory.
and
Um,
so that reminds me, you have a movie about these big tuskers.
yes, I brought out a movie highlighting the plight of these animals. It's called Last of the Big Tuskers, and brought that movie out in 2018. But part of it was filmed at Ol Donyo Lodge, actually. So
So
yeah,
cool.
so One Ton is one of the stars.
He is. And so how old is an elephant that has a 100-pound tusk?
So generally, those tusks will grow exponentially the older that bull elephant
Mm,
gets. So,
mm,
and also, in fact, bull elephants become more sexually active the older they get. So,
mm,
um, when hunters say that they're taking out an old bull elephant because it's beyond its prime, is actually totally fictitious. That is the
mm,
time when these bulls are most dominant and
mm.
when they actually spread their genes more because they're more sexually active the older they get. So, probably from about the age of 40, you'll start seeing really large ivory and bull elephants right
Mm.
up until the end of their lives, which is about 60, 60, 65 in the wild.
When we were at another spot in Kenya, I can't remember exactly which park, but is it called they're in Musk when
And
an
must, must,
elephant
yeah,
Must. Okay,
must. It's Musth. It's a weird,
okay. And
weird.
so we did see an elephant that was in Must, and we were told that they're very dangerous during that moment, yeah?
Yeah, so they have heightened testosterone levels and they start leaking a fluid from their temporal glands,
Mhm,
which is a clear sign if you see this sort of dark stripes, dark black stripes along their faces. And then it's
mhm,
best to leave a bull elephant alone,
mhm,
because they are pretty aggressive or more aggressive than normal, for sure.
mhm. It's probably always best to leave them alone, but particularly when they're in Must.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, And then from a conservation standpoint, what would you say right now, specific to the area around El Donyo and then maybe for Greater Kenya, what are the biggest threats and concerns that you have looking ahead?
Yeah, I think definitely, climate change is something that we're struggling with throughout Africa. We've had an incredibly bad drought this year, for example. In that area,
Mhm,
actually, Amboseli was hit worse than we were, but it's still a very, very bad drought. And it's not just about access to water; it's obviously about access to food, actually, more than anything, because
mhm,
you can put in a watering hole like we have at Ol Donyo, and animals can get water, but there's nothing to eat. There's not a blade of grass. There's very little vegetation. So we've now had very nice relieving rains. And so the whole of Ol Donyo will look so different to what you saw at Mimi. It's like a
okay.
it's like a golf course. It's just
Is it?
bright emerald green. It looks like
Ah,
Ireland or something.
I'm so
Um,
happy to hear that.
so yeah, these changings of the seasons are amazing at Ol Donyo. So yeah, climate change would be a big one, droughts, but then also obviously looking at lions, for example, lions, their population in the last 20 years, 25 years, we've lost half of Africa's lion population. So it's not
Wow.
just elephants that have declined, but lions as well. And so it's also working with local communities and not coming with a authoritative, we know what's best, stop your traditions of killing lions attitude, but rather working with local communities to find out ways in which we can convince local communities that lions are an asset rather
Mhm,
than something that is a threat to them. So
Mhm.
it's working with things like that, and we've got a great initiative across Africa called the Big Cats Initiative that we do, which is all around big cat conservation, so lions, leopards, and cheetahs across Africa.
Hmm. Great. Well, I'm happy to know that people like you are on top of it so that it will preserve these beautiful animals for our children and their children. Certainly, without the intervention and help, um, some of the threats that they're facing, they wouldn't be here right now if it wasn't for all your group and the other conservation groups throughout Africa. And I think for some people who look at a price tag of a safari and see that it's very expensive, which it usually is, think about the fact that a large portion of what you're spending is going into the conservation of these animals. Ol Donyo, when we were there and there was a drought, was trucking in, I think, 2 truckloads of water every day for these animals. And I mean, that's just one small thing that they do. But like, I can't imagine what the cost of that is to bring in, 2 trucks of water from who knows where, um, miles and miles every day.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And it's also the community aspect, because you know, we support 24 teachers' salaries in 15 different schools around the area as well. So it's not just about the direct benefits to the wildlife, but it's also the indirect benefits of supporting local communities, so that local communities can see, oh wow, this tourism, we own this land. This tourism is actually benefiting us now,
mhm.
by supporting our kids in their education. So instead of having 100 kids in a classroom, you've now got 30 or 40 or something, because you've got more teachers that are employed. So it's those kind of spin-off benefits which are huge. And yes, every tourism dollar makes a massive difference. So our company, the shareholders of our company, for example, they don't take a dividend. Every single year, when we make a profit every single year, it all goes back into conservation and community development in Africa.
Wow. Amazing. Well, thank you.
Yes. Well, thanks
Before
to your guests. They're the ones making the real difference.
Well, I'm happy to send lots of people to El Donyo, that's for sure. I
Awesome.
mean, it's such a great place. We went with our family, for adults, whatever it might be. It is an amazing destination for foodies, for people who love wine, for people who love animals, for active people, for people who want to just go in a vehicle every day. It really is such a beautiful, amazing place. And I think we highlighted a lot of the reasons that it's so special. I'll give another shout out to Jackson one more time because he did give us such an amazing experience while we were there, both Jacksons,
Yeah.
um, that I would go back in a heartbeat anytime. All right. Well, before we go, let's talk a little bit about what the exclusive gift would be if we send someone, if we book someone in El Donyo, because we're not sending you there in the next 6 months. I'm sure it's full or under renovation. But if someone books in the next 6 months, what would be their special gift?
So we will definitely organize a special private dining experience down at the Hyde for any of your guests. This would either be a dinner or a breakfast or a lunch. I would highly recommend that you do the lunch, because it's in the middle of the day. It's when most of the animals come down, and we'll do a really nice private dining experience for you down at the Hyde, which will be lovely. And then also, if you book with Mimi, I'll also give you access to my movie, Last of the Big Tuskers, and we'll send you a coupon code so that you can watch that online, maybe even bring it with you to Ol Donyo when you go.
Perfect. Thank you. James, delightful. I'm so happy that you came on. I just love talking about El Donyo. So this was a fun opportunity for us to chat about it and share how amazing it is with everybody else. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you. No worries, Mimi. Thank you so much. And also just remember that it's a great family place. So we take kids 5 and above, which is highly unusual for
Okay.
most safari lodges. So those of you that do have young kids, you're most welcome. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Take care.